added him to my weekly buy list and done a ton of research. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it. You guys got me into Moon Knight. This guy's awesome. So let's go over Moon Knight's origins, some substantial moments in his history, and then his 2 recent complete reworkings making that history useless. Originally, he was a mercenary hired by a criminal organization named the Committee, and they supplied Mark Spector with the Moon Knight name, costume, and tools. They then sent him off to capture a werewolf for the Committee. Well, this origin was explained away later as a ruse, and in a Marvel Spotlight issue, he received a proper origin. He was born in Chicago, Illinois under the name Mark Spector. He was a boxer, US Marine, and mercenary who eventually took a job in Egypt as a bodyguard. He stumbles across an archaeological dig that contained the statue of the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. Mark Spector then attempts to prevent his employer from stealing the ancient artifacts and is actually beaten to death and left to die there. Then some roaming Egyptians pick up Mark's body and they bring it to the Khonshu statue where the spirit of the moon god offers him a second chance at life if he agrees to become the god's avatar on Earth. He agrees, taking on the shroud of the moon god, and proceeds to rescue the artifacts. He then moves back to America where he decides to become a crime fighter with multiple aliases. Now, these multiple aliases is one of the defining factors that makes this character unique and separate from the other superheroes in the Marvel Universe. As time went on, instead of just letting him have multiple aliases, the writers thought it would be more interesting if they gave him multiple personalities, or, as it's now known, dissociative identity disorder. The 3 personalities are Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, and Jack Lockley. But more on this is going to be revealed later, so let's just move forward. As with most superheroes from the 60s and 70s timeframe, Moon Knight makes random appearances all over the place for the next 30 years or so, getting new origins and new stories. His first solo running title was The Fist of Khonshu, where he dropped all of his aliases and decided to become an independently wealthy man who opens art galleries. Eventually, the Cult of Khonshu calls Mark Spector back to take the role of Moon Knight again, where they supply him with a whole new arsenal of moon-based weaponry. Over the course of this series, he eventually joins the West Coast Avengers, and it is there that he discovers that his weapons were made by a time-traveling Hawkeye from the year 2940. He then goes to war with Seth, Khonshu's rival, and eventually perishes. In his next ongoing series, titled Mark Spector Moon Knight, he gets revived by Khonshu again, and then he gets a sidekick named Midnight, though eventually this character is written out of Marvel in a Spider-Man storyline. Much of this run has Moon Knight teaming up with Spider-Man and Punisher to fight against the Secret Empire, a criminal organization that was used by Hydra to distract S.H.I.E.L.D. from Hydra's activities. Later, the Secret Empire would then become a ruse used by Kingpin to divide the criminal organizations of New York so that he could get control back. Eventually, at the end of this run, Thor brings Moon Knight to the Avengers Tower to answer for crimes against Dr. Doom, and in response to this, Moon Knight burns his Avengers card and he quits. But shortly after this, the series got cancelled anyway, and it ended with him sacrificing himself to save his loved ones. Next, he was revived in a 4-issue miniseries, and then would become more of a cameo character for a little while. His next significant appearance would be during Civil War, where he ends up trying to register through Khonshu's coaxing, but Tony Stark decides that his mental condition is unstable. The doctor who is evaluating Mark Spector is supposed to state that Mark Spector is too unstable to be a superhero. But Khonshu speaks through Mark Spector, and the doctor ends up bowing down and praising Khonshu and clears Moon Knight as a registered superhero. He then goes through a few more plots involving him being a registered superhero and not being able to keep anyone around him, and he eventually gets involved in a plotline named The Death of Mark Spector. And at the end of the plotline, it involved Iron Man and Norman Osborn and the Mark Spector personality dying. Following the death of the Mark Spector personality, the Jake Lockley personality was now the dominant personality. He goes through a long adventure as Jake Lockley, redeeming himself of everything that he has done in the past. And in the end, it's decided that the Jake Lockley personality is the more sane of them, and he is allowed to continue a happy life as Jake Lockley. Well, things get more interesting for his DID because eventually he fights against Mark Spector's brother Randall Spector, and in the end, we get the Mark Spector personality back. He then goes on a 12-issue relaunch run where he has the multiple personalities of Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Captain America in his head. He then gets Ultron's head and goes on a crazy adventure where he thinks he's the other respected superheroes. Eventually, his Wolverine personality goes berserk and kills the Spider-Man and Captain America personalities, and he gets tangled up with a villain trying to get Ultron's head back. But after all of this, Moon Knight calls the Avengers to take the head and gets congratulated by Tony Stark himself for a job well done, only to seemingly develop an Iron Man personality. The new run for the book has him in two costumed personas: Moon Knight for his normal enemies and dealing with the supernatural, and then we have Mr. Knight to help the police out and assist them in investigations. He's also seeking professional help for his dissociative identity disorder, and this new doctor claims that he in fact does not have DID. He actually has brain damage. It's explained that his brain is currently inhabited by an ancient consciousness that has four aspects to it: Pathfinder, Embracer, Defender, and Watcher. As this is not a normal thing that the human brain can cope with, Mark Spector's brain has splintered itself to help him mentally deal with what's happening to him. But in the end, his brain just has an ancient being's mind in it. The new story arcs also follow the concept of Moon Knight is alone and can't be loved by anyone, as they will die. Moon Knight's powers are mostly martial arts, marksmanship, and an excellent combat strategist. What's interesting about his fighting style is that one-time Taskmaster, a villain who can copy any superhero style, stated that he preferred not to copy Moon Knight's style because Moon Knight preferred to take a punch than block it. During one of the series, he was granted the powers of strength, speed, and agility, and the level of these powers were dependent upon the phase of the moon, but in the 2008 series, these powers are removed. He also has a series of moon-oriented weaponry. One thing to note is that he's often referred to as Marvel's Batman since he's rich and runs around in a suit with gadgets. Though you can tell from these stories in the origin that he's slightly different. Pretty sure Batman doesn't have dissociative identity disorder. And that's Moon Knight. I didn't want to go too much into his early stories as he has been rewritten into so many different directions at this point. But he's definitely a fun character, and if you haven't been reading his newest series, you need to. It's amazing. I'm Benny for Comic Storian, and I'll see you guys next time right here at the channel.